Hello and welcome to another wand building episode. Today, instead of focusing on some of my own wand builds, we're going to be trying to recreate wand builds, or basically add my own interpretation of some magical attacks that maybe you've seen in some anime, and try to put our own Noita spin on it. And obviously I'm going to show all the wand builds out. So I hope you learn something, and maybe you can incorporate some of these into your own wand builds. Most of them are very good at dealing damage, but again, it's mostly for the show of it and trying to see if you can have fun with it. So the first one is actually one of my favorite kind of attacks, and it's called the atomic dismantling jutsu. It comes from Naruto. I really like this attack mainly because of the simplicity of it and because of the aesthetics, mainly the sound effect. So I'll show you a clip of it and then we can look at the wand itself.
神遁限界剥離の術
So here is the two wands I have. This first one is basically the setup, just to make it look good, and the second one is the actual projectile. It's mainly using pinpoint of light. Forget the add manners, and most of this is kind of useless. The main part is that it's a very rapid fire pinpoint of light that has no explosion, and I've used reduced spread to make it a bit more concise, and obviously matter eater because the atomic dismantling jutsu kind of eats through everything. So I'll show you the wand build now. First I'm going to fire this and then this. So you can see it very effectively eats through the terrain. Now you don't have to use this. It's just I like to use it as kind of a setup because it looks kind of cool, but you could obviously just use the actual projectile itself, although I do think it looks kind of cool. And generally I don't like to use wand builds that require two wands, so we'll stick to this for the rest of the video. So like I said, it's just a rapid fire pinpoint of light, but you can see how effectively it eats through the terrain. Now the aiming arm is kind of adding a little bit of spread. If I remove that, you'll see a bit how more concise it looks, right? So again, it eats through the terrain very effectively, and the matter eater is not running out, of course, because of the great spells. I love how clean it looks, even if it's not eating the terrain. Just the concise nature of it, like it's not causing a lot of chaos. I mean, obviously in one direction, but it sticks to the point. It's a pinpoint of light. It's very succinct, very concise. So that's the first wand build. Again, I'll show you the wand. The mana is just here because the wand doesn't have enough mana to actually keep up. If I keep firing this, it will run out of mana eventually. So yeah, that's the first wand build. The second one comes from an anime I didn't watch, but my friend showed me the clip. So the attack is called, I think, White Nova. So here, I'll show you the clip.
魔王ディアブロを置いて他にない
真の魔王
ホワイトノバ
Okay, so the next attack is White Nova. I'm going to show you the build. Basically, at long range, I'm casting an Earthquake. which is going to spawn in a bubble spark that when it dies will create that white ball that we saw. Now the white ball is coming from these unstable crystals. If you stack a lot of unstable crystals together, it looks like they have a very bright white effect, and then it's casting a bunch of propane that are going to explode immediately because of Nala. The only caveat to this build is that you need to have double glass cannon. Now generally speaking, I don't like to have wand build that need perks. However, there's a limit to how big an explosive can be without glass cannon. So you're gonna have to have a double glass cannon. Now obviously I'm cheating it in with Spell Labs, but you could obviously give it to yourself. And this is the wand build. And I'm standing above this bridge because in the actual anime the attack took place on a bridge with a lot of water. So I'm going to fire it out. Now the earthquake as well, like I said, this is my own interpretation of it. The earthquake is there because of that white effect. Now we don't have something like that in Noita, and earthquake is the only spell in the game that makes this kind of effect. So here goes nothing. And the game has to think a bit. I don't think I need to tell you that you need explosive immunity, and then it's done. The reason why I use propane is because it has this very blue whitish effect when it explodes. So yeah, and just to show what I mean about the white dot, the reason why I used, can you see how white it looks when you stack unstable crystals? Oh, I forgot I had glass cannon. Let the game think about that for a second. I'm just gonna switch off glass cannon. So there's the build. Again, these first ones don't do anything, they just meant to add the white effect. It's this one here that actually when it dies, it's gonna spawn the propane, and obviously the earthquake gives us the effect, right? So that was the white nova. The next one is an attack that comes from Overlord.
絶望の始まりだ。素晴らしい、最高記録だ。あれは夢だよな。
To conceptualize, mainly because this spell over here was not behaving the way I wanted it to. So just to quickly explain the wand, it's casting an Omega Black Hole at distance with the long distance cast that's gonna slowly move down because of these two spells, and it has a water trail which I'll explain later. When the Omega Black Hole dies, it's gonna cast two spells. The first spell is water. Now you might be asking, why is it all the way at the end? The material spells have a very unique, or can I say weird, method of the way you cast them. They have to be cast last, and this is why this wand took so much of a brain buster to conceptualize. So when it dies, it will spawn the water, and it will also spawn a death cross that also has a death timer. The death cross is going to spawn this entire garbage here, which I'll show it to you when I cast the wand. It's basically my Noita version of those monsters that you saw that he spawned in. Now, why am I using so much water? Actually, in order to make this like suit the actual animation, I've fungal shifted water into void liquid. So as you can see here, this has a water trail, but actually void liquid is coming out. So you do need to fungal shift water into void liquid, or anything where there's acid, and like for example you could use acid trail and sea of acid if you fungal shift acid into void liquid. Right, so I'm gonna cast the wand. I'm gonna go on top of the mountain altar, because this build requires a lot of space, and obviously when you're working with Omega Black Hole you do need to be aware of the dangers. So I'm gonna cast it, and like I said, Omega Black Hole is pretty deadly, and I can see the void liquid coming down. I got rocked to the face, and there's the void liquid, and there you can see my creation. Now this thing's actually very powerful. It's basically a Path of the Dark Flame that with these 4 spells I've made it infinite, so it's never gonna die, and it has these tentacles, so it's gonna shoot out a bunch of tentacles. And I've also added homing as well as boomerang. So because this is gonna last forever, I can actually ditch this wand once it's been spawned in, and it's gonna follow me, and if it's in range of enemies, it's gonna go for them. Also, I threw my wand, but there's also a drilling shot which enables it to pass through walls. So you can see it goes for the enemy and murders them, and then it comes back to me, and it will follow me basically forever. The only things that can destroy it now are explosive detonator, spells to power, or any kind of black hole. So yeah, this is my conceptualization of that attack. I'm actually really proud of it, because like, even though it looks so weird in Noita, it, like, you can see the resemblance to the actual anime. So, and that was what I was going for with these videos. So you can see it's in the ground trying to go for that guy, and once it kills them, it comes back to me. Now, I did kill Pit Boss before, so I'm gonna attempt to do that again. And like I said, the actual Omega Black Hole and the sea of water and all that was just for show. The actual, I'm just gonna give it back to myself. The actual part of the wand that's dealing damage is everything from here. So I'm gonna just show you this wand build, right? None of that, none of that. So if I clear that, it's basically just Path of the Dark Flame that's infinite, homing and boomerang, and I've also added avoiding arc so that it doesn't go into the wall, because once it goes into the wall, drilling shot makes it move very slowly, right? So there's my projectile. So now let's go and kill a pit boss. Like I said, this thing is actually very deadly. The game might lag for a second because pit boss likes to vomit everything you throw at him. There he comes. and it's dealing damage. He might destroy my projectile. As you can see, all the tentacles and stuff flying. I'm trying to move, but the game won't let me move. It's lagging too much. So I just have to wait for Pit Boss to do his thing. I can see my projectile coming back, which means he must be dead. I'm trying to move. It's lagging so much. There's so much Path of the Dark Flame. But my projectile did come back, which means he must be dead, because he wouldn't have returned. And I did see the Meteoricide, the Meteor Shower spell. So we know that this build is very effective at killing the Pit Boss. I'm just going to try to pause to let the game restabilize. But as you can see, that was the one build. Very effective, very deadly. And obviously the Omega Black Hole things was just for show. And these are 2 ones. I killed Pit Boss very easily, and because it's an infinite wisp, it's a projectile that will never die. This will follow me forever, basically. Very deadly, very powerful. Also, the Path of the Dark Flame is just an extra touch, but just the way it moves and the way it interacts, I'm very proud of this one build. So I hope you test it out and have fun with it as well. The next one build is actually my favorite from these 4, and it's an attack from the Faith series, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't watch the actual anime, but again, it was recommended to me by a friend. So we'll take a look at the clip again, and then I'll show you the one build.
俺を誰と心得る。このウルクに設置したディンギル360機すべて俺が作り魔力を込め統括するもの。
Right, so we're at our final one build for today. This one turned out just really well. I'm really proud of it. If you look at this first one, this is the one build. Now, it might look overwhelming, but it's actually just 2 copies of the same cast. I'm going to cast it and then you'll see what it does. So, I'm really proud of this. It came out so similar to what I was intending. Now, you don't need the horizontal path, and without it, it will remove the restriction of the direction. So you might be thinking what's going on, so I'll explain now. So obviously, let's just stop this. We are not new to pollen loops. It was my previous video covered because it was so important that I had to teach it to you. So basically, pinpoint of light, spawning in a bunch of things, and then you get to this point here. So we need to talk a little bit about intense concentrated light. Normally, it's a very bad spell. It spawns in a bunch of concentrated light, and the reason why I don't like this spell is because it takes too long to do its thing, and also there's a lot of modifiers that are not affected by it, especially LARPA spells. So why am I using this? Why is it so useful here? First of all, intense concentrated light can be affected by, you see the actual wand, the spectral, the phantom wand image, it can be affected by glimmer spells. So we can change the color of the spells. What's important about this thing is that even though the actual spell is garbage, we can make use of the actual effect it shows. If you add an add trigger, you'll notice that the spell, oh, it's not supposed to be doing that. Something's quite off here. Right, so if I add a spell here, there it will work. So add trigger works uniquely. If you have an add trigger, you'll see it's not spitting out anything because it's trying to cast, well, I don't really know what's happening, but add trigger kind of breaks it, where you only get the wand effect but no actual wand. If I use add timer or add death expiration trigger, sorry, you have the blue wand effect, and then you also have it casting a spell. So this is why it's actually the MVP of this wand build, because even though Add Trigger and Pollen are doing all the work, the actual cannons sort of that you see are coming from a bunch of these. So what's happening is, if I just go and get my wand again, so here, basically this is 2 copies of this wand. You can see it's identical from this left hand side to the right hand side. So we're going to look at this here. We have a pinpoint of light spawning in a bunch of pollen. From here, from this add timer, you have the orange intense concentrated light that has a timer, and it's going to spawn triplicate bolt with orange as well. I do use the orange because the color of the projectile in the anime is also orange. Now why am I using this thing here? Aiming arc allows me to change the trajectory. You can see they all aim to where I'm aiming, right? So that's why I use that. Over here I have formation behind your back. It's basically spawning 2 copies of the same thing in opposite directions. So if I spawn it, you can see how I have like an army of wands following my command. Now obviously this wand is taking up a lot of space, but you could, because if you wanted to shoot more than just a triplicate bolt, basically you could cut down on the glimmer and you could remove the aiming arc. So there's some places for, obviously there's room for your own interpretation, and you can do whatever you want. And just to demonstrate, what I'm going to do is, on the same one, instead of an orange triplicate bolt, I'll put in a homing, and we'll look for plasma, and I'll do the same on the left hand side. And actually you can keep it separate. You can see the top half is firing that. If I go homing, and let's add blue plasma just to show you, you could keep them separate, blue and green, but I'm just going to make it green for the sake of keeping it identical. So you can put whatever you want. You can also remove the glimmer and the aiming arc. The aiming arc just helps it I shouldn't shred myself. The aiming arc allows you to focus the direction of the beams, and I ended up destroying the mountain altar. So I'm going to take this wand build and go and bully the pit boss again. Right, we are back in the mountains, and I just wanted to show you the build again, but in actual combat. Like I said, the original one had the orange glimmer triplicate bolt, but I'm in the mood to go and bully a certain pit boss, so that's what we're going to do. If I can just shred these things out of my way. Alright, so like I said, this one is actually my favorite out of all of them. Just the way all the wands spawn and fire out in such a like identical fashion. It just looks really cool. And obviously you can like cheese create the terrain. And obviously I do think pit boss needs to be taught a lesson. So as usual, plasma works very effectively against him. However, I'm still a coward, so if you will allow me to fire again. Ouch, he hit me with something. Where are you? He stopped me from firing, but he died, so it doesn't matter. So like I said, you can put whatever you want in these slots. You get basically 2, and if you remove the orange and the aiming arc, you get 4 slots for free. The horizontal path makes it such that things are breaking now because there's nothing in those slots. So if I just add a projectile, maybe something like glowing lance perhaps, rain down fires of arrows. So like I said, you can put whatever you want, but the horizontal path makes it so that you can't really shoot downwards. However, I like to get out of it So yeah, very unique concept. This is probably one of my favorite wand builds so far, and it just looks so cool and it just works so effectively. Like if I had to add homing to this, it would be so effective. And even without the homing, just the way the visuals of it, very impressed with it. So anyway, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the video. Try these wand builds out for yourself. Maybe you can incorporate them and add your own style, add your own unique spin on things. Obviously, Noita is a game about experimentation. If you have any suggestions for wand builds that you come across that look cool, or if you have any ideas for anime attacks that I should try and replicate, do leave them in the comments so I can take a look at them. And also try it out for yourself. If there's a certain character that you like in a game or an anime or a movie and they've done this massively cool attack, try and recreate it in Noita. You can do a lot of unique things with the spells available, in your own pixel art Finnish mythology style, keeping true to the Noita fashion. Anyway, I'm off. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.